Hey, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again on our 20 for 20 series. Today we're talking about something that I know y'all are excited about. I know Tony and I are excited about. It's finally the NFL draft time. We're almost here. We're doing some last minute conversations just about where Alabama guys are going to go, how many are going to go in the first round. So, Tony, let's just start there. How many guys do you think are going to actually go on Thursday?
I think we definitely have four that we're looking at. You look at Alabama, it's pretty much established that, Tua's the first rounder, Jedrick Wills was the first rounder, and then both the receivers, Jeudy and Henry Ruggs the third. I think we're pretty confident that each one of those four is probably going to go really inside the top 15. I think you might see one of those guys maybe slip into the early 20s, but I can't really see any of that bunch slipping anywhere past that. So that right there would be Alabama's tying the SEC record, which Alabama has reached, I think, on 4 different occasions. I think the real step would be, can they get to that 5th? Can they get to that 6th? I'm definitely sure that they'll get to 4. I'd bet anything on that. It gets real interesting, I think, when you look at maybe a Xavier McKinney or a Trayvon Diggs, possibly even maybe a Terrell Lewis as a guy that could sneak into the later parts of the draft. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. So just with us talking about a little bit before, and we'll get into it more specifically with these guys later, but I am a lot more confident than you are that I think 5 guys will go. I wouldn't quite bet the house on it, but I just think if you made me pick between 4 and 5, I think I'd go 5. I do think one of those defensive backs is going to sneak in at the end, and I think it's going to be a good value for whoever drafts that guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when you're looking at that 5 guy, the guy actually that comes up for me is Trayvon Diggs. And I know it's kind of been hit or miss. I know I did a mock draft roundup last week, and he was some people had him in the first, some people didn't. I think if there is going to be a 5th, I think he seems to be trending the right way. Earlier, we're recording this on a Monday, and on Monday, Daniel Jeremiah tweeted out that Diggs was one of the names that he was hearing might actually go higher than what people are projecting him to go, and I think that that's really interesting. I think you look at him as 6'2" cornerback. He grades out really well from his pro football grades and just his coverage. I think you could get bogged down by the poor performance he showed against LSU, but other than that game, yeah, I know. Other than that game, he was really solid for Alabama. He's got everything that you would want as an NFL team. So,
Other than the
I
most
really like him.
important game, other than the most important game Alabama played last year, Diggs was
That's true.
great.
And he didn't play in the bowl game. I think he probably would have ended up helping himself out if he played in the bowl game. But you also got to look, too, he's a guy that was coming off of an injury. So I know maybe not a lot of Alabama fans would agree with me because he's not the most popular name among Alabama fans right now. But I really like Trayvon Diggs as a potential first rounder, and he might be that 5th guy.
Would you? And after this, we'll get into the individual guys. But if you could pick McKinney or Diggs right now, who do you think's the better option?
I don't know because I like Xavier. I like what he brings to the game. I was really making my Diggs pick more of what I was hearing in terms of like momentum. Honestly, both guys could be first round talents. It really depends on the market and where you feel you can get each guy. I wouldn't really be upset from an evaluation standpoint if both of them were first rounders. I think they're both kind of like late first, early second guys, So if you really need a safety and you're picking in the 20s, and maybe you're reaching a little bit for Xavier in terms of like if you looked at what his value is and what it should be. But if you're looking at a safety, he's probably the best safety in this draft. So, it's tough to say. You could say where somebody's value is, but then if I'm an NFL team and I need a safety, I'm not going to feel bad about picking Xavier McKinney at 20. Even I think some of the mock drafts I've seen him at 17. Even then, if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you want a safety, shoot, just go for it and pick him. He's going to be a good player.
Yeah, I don't have I don't know. When I think of Diggs, I like some of our viewers probably. I just remember that LSU game, and it's tough for me to feel as confident that Diggs is gonna transition. Not that it'll be bad, but I'm confident that McKinney's going to be great in Diggs, and I think of that LSU game.
There's one play for McKinney, and I don't want to bash him up, but you remember that run in the Auburn game where the running back took off his helmet and he blew up Xavier McKinney, and that was the one play. I know and I don't know his numbers from that game, but that was one of the things I was like, man, Xavier should have done better on that play. It just did not stop him at all, and that kind of the go ahead touchdown for Auburn, if I remember it right. And just I remember he knocked off Xavier's helmet, and I was like, what the heck? Because I wasn't used to seeing that from Xavier. So they both have their moments of like they could have done stuff better. I've always been kind of high on Diggs, and just in terms of his measurables and what he can bring. So maybe I'm just a little bit higher on him.
Well, we'll see which one NFL teams are higher on here pretty soon. Just to go through some of the individual guys, we're not going to spend a lot of time on Tua just because that's how we started this series. We talked about Tua, and if you want to hear us really break down where we think he could go, and just what we think of his draft stock and all the stories surrounding his health, I would encourage y'all to go back and look at that first video where we really dive deep on that. But all the mock drafts you looked at, Tony, have Tua going 5 or 6, and they seem pretty split pretty evenly. Do you have as of Monday, do you have a last minute call you want to make on where you think Tua will go?
Yeah, and I mean, some things might change. It seems like the conversation around Tua seems to change every day. So, like I said, we're recording this on a Monday. Maybe by the time you're listening to it on Thursday morning, it'll be different, But I still hold true to think that there's a better chance that somebody trades up for Tua than they trade down, like that he goes past 6. I don't see him going past 6. And I think there's even a small possibility that you'd have to trade up. It's interesting. Another record I guess Alabama could set is the highest draft pick. 3 occasions under Saban. I guess highest draft pick under Saban, and 3 occasions. Saban's had a player at Alabama drafted number 3 overall. Obviously, last year is Quinnen Williams. 2012 was Trent Richardson, and then before that it was Marcel Darius. So. Tua could be right there at number 3. Maybe if the Redskins want to trade, it could be there at number 2. If a team's willing to trade up that high, and if a team's willing to, probably still get their guy moving back in the draft, it might make sense. I'm not sure. It seems like it seems like if you're Miami, at least what it sounds like, you could wait in 5 and still pick Tua, but who knows, man? So maybe somebody, last minute, maybe all this was a smokescreen and somebody wants to trade up and get him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe it's come to this, but I don't see it. The closer we get to the draft, I'm not convinced that the Dolphins are going to pass on 2 at 5, but I'm not convinced that the Dolphins are interested enough to trade up. I think if a team says, I think if a team tries to bait the Dolphins into trading up, the Dolphins might say do it and call that bluff, and then that team, they just see what happens. But I don't think the Dolphins are going to trade up, and I've seen that proposed as kind of a popular thing. The Dolphins, just to be safe, trading up to get to I don't know that makes sense to me. It could happen, definitely. I think this draft is going to be crazy. I think this draft is going to be maybe the most surprising. It also might be boring. I could see teams kind of playing it safe.
Kind of hedging your bet there, man.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to be – I think it's going to be surprise. I think I think it's going to be surprising, but I don't think it's exciting when guys fall. Like I think the exciting thing is maybe when a guy goes high that we don't expect, and I think it may just be similar to kind of like I think back of like Reuben Foster when he kind of fell in the draft. I don't think that was exciting as much as it was like it's kind of boring that Reuben fell, but it was still a surprise.
Yeah, I think it might be exciting in terms of it too. I mean, obviously, I think from an Alabama perspective, you're obviously rooting for the kid to get as high and as much money as he can out of this this draft. But I think it gets interesting if I don't think he does slip to San Diego at 6, but if he does, it'd be interesting to see what team would trade up for him, and does he end up in a really kind of cool situation? Does he end up in a I I don't know. I'm just trying to spitball names. Does he end up in like a New Orleans where he can kind of understudy Drew Brees? Does he end up in a New England where he can kind of be the heir apparent to Tom Brady? I don't know. I don't know just where he's going to go if he lands past Los Angeles, but it could be to an interesting team.
Yeah, and I'd love to see Tua on a team that's going to be, in the playoff hunt next year. I am not convinced that's the Dolphins, so maybe I'd prefer to see Tua go to the Chargers just to see, to actually compete in some meaningful games in his first year if he's going to play, as he sort of says. Just to keep going, the next guy that the mock drafts would sort of tell us is up for consideration is going to be Jedrick Wills. And a lot of the mock drafts is sort of centered around either the Cardinals at number 8 overall or the Jets at number 11. If you had to pick between those two places, is there one that you feel like, you're more convinced he's going to go to, or do you think that maybe he could go higher than this?
I don't know. He's a guy that I think, his absolute ceiling of where you could see him go is the Giants at number 4. I know they're interested in an offensive tackle. And, you got to think you've got Burton Burns there. Might actually kind of influence them. He's obviously knows Jedrick, has seen him the last couple of years. So that might be an interesting thing to look at as well. I think Arizona could be a good fit as a team, looking for someone to kind of complete that offensive line and really protect Kyler Murray. Same kind of situation really with the Jets as well. I think both of them are good fits for him. I mean, I don't know which one I'd rather. I mean, you get Ellis. I mean, you get New York, and you'll be right there with Quinnen Williams. So I think that that could be cool. And then obviously you got the New York market as well. So there's a lot of ways you can go there. I think either landing spot would work for him. It'd be pretty high in the draft.
I have a fun idea, and this is both what I want to see and what I think a lot of Alabama fans will want to see. Let him go to the Cardinals because he can go there, block for Drake. So you're not just watching Wills play; you're watching Kenyon Drake ball out in Arizona, and I think that offense is going to be fun to watch with, just with everything they're doing. I know people might still be salty about Kyler getting the Heisman. I think he kind of stole that one, but I do think I think that offense is still fun to watch.
At the same time, from an Alabama perspective, if he goes to the Jets, man, you got back-to-back first-round picks in a division where maybe they could make a push, and two big guys on each line.
But do you want to watch that Jets offense play?
I mean, I don't like the Jets play. Maybe Jedrick helps transform that Jets offense.
I think it's going to take a lot. I'm not planning on drafting any of those guys on my fantasy team. That's for sure. When we get to before we move on, Jerry Jeudy is kind of right in the same window, and Ruggs, he's mentioned, he's definitely in the conversation, but I think most people, whether this is right or wrong, kind of view Ruggs as at the bottom of the pecking order between CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. But just looking at Wills and Jeudy and Ruggs, would you sort of predict these guys are going to go Wills, Jeudy, and then Ruggs, or?
I think it's up in the air in that standpoint, and I think actually Jeudy might be the guy that is seeing his stock fall a little bit, which I don't necessarily think is fair. I think he had an inconsistent end to the season last year, but this is a guy that at one point we were thinking might be a top 5 pick, and I still think he has that talent. He excels out of the slot, but he can also play outside. He's the best route runner in this draft class, and I just think if you gave me those 3 and I'm throwing a ball up to someone at the end of the game, I'm probably drawing my route to Rudy. To Jeudy,
kind of combine them there.
Yeah, so I actually think that he's the guy that I would draw up to play for if I had all 3 of them on my team. That being said, I don't necessarily think you could go wrong, and I think in a certain aspect it might hurt each one of them, the fact that there is that depth at the wide receiver position, because maybe it's not just those 3. You look at Jefferson from LSU. There's a lot of people, Higgins from Clemson. Ayuk from Arizona State. There's so
Hmm.
much just depth in this class, and I know I'm forgetting one right there, but there's so much depth in this class that you might be thinking, I don't want to waste my pick on Jerry Jeudy when I can get Justin Jefferson or T. Higgins later in the draft. I want to get another position here, and I
Yeah.
don't know if that's the right call, but you might see one of those two, or even Lamb kind of fall where just because a team doesn't necessarily in this draft class deem it worth picking a wide receiver at 12, 13, 14.
I know they play different positions, but if you had to sort of pick, if you needed a tackle and a receiver badly, which a lot of these teams that are actually going to be picking between Wills and Jeudy do, a lot of the Jets need a receiver and they need a tackle, and the Raiders are, I think, mentioned in this as well. Would you rather have Jeudy? Do you think you'd rather build your team around Jeudy or Wills with his first round pick?
It depends. I think it just depends on what you view your needs at. I think there's actually it's interesting too because we talked about the depth at the wide receiver position. There's also a huge depth at the tackle
Mm-hmm.
position. You can name about 4, 5, 6 guys that are probably considered first round talents at tackle as well. So Jedrick's kind of in the same position where if he is going to slide in this draft, it's because it's not definite that
Mm-hmm.
you have to take a tackle here.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, like I said before, I think all these guys probably land comfortably in the top 20.
Yeah, I think from a depth for me, I think from a depth perspective, I think you definitely will. I think Wills will go ahead of Jeudy, and I think that it's probably just going to be because you have 4 or 5 tackles. Once you get through those 4 or 5, you're probably not finding value. And like you said, we can go maybe 8 receivers deep, and you're probably still finding a guy that can contribute day one. So you're going to have some guys in the second round that can really ball out and have a great rookie season probably.
Sure.
I don't know. I might want to take, just in a larger sense, I might, just from a who's better at their position. I don't know. I might actually give Jeudy a look there though. I think these teams are good because of just the depth. I think it's going to be Wills, but I think from a pure talent standpoint, I think Jeudy might be the best of the 3 guys.
Maybe I think it's easy to overlook, or I think it's easy to stereotype Ruggs as being just a speed guy, but he's
Mm-hmm.
got arguably one of the best hands of the group, and so I think he's more than just a speed guy. He's not just a track star.
Mm-hmm.
You might look at it from that perspective of he could probably hurt a defense more than all of them. You really got to change the way your defense goes because he's such a home run threat. Every time he gets the ball, he can score. It's kind of like a Tyreek Hill kind of guy. And those guys, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm horrified about going up against those type of guys that just, how do you account for that speed? So I don't know, man. I don't know which one I would pick first.
What would you say, what would you put the chances are that you think Ruggs goes before Jeudy in the draft?
Honestly, right now, I think it might be a coin flip. I think before I would
Really?
have. Yeah, I think it depends on how much you get caught up in what you can do with Ruggs. You got to also look too. I mean, who's to say in a different circumstance that Ruggs doesn't lead Alabama in
Mm-hmm.
receptions? A certain year. I think there was the talent at receiver was so
Yeah.
great that it could have really been anyone that was the main guy there. And I think you saw Ruggs deal with some injuries, which kind of limited him. So his numbers might have been even better. And like I said before, I do not think that Ruggs is just a speed guy. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he can do it all and he's got that burner speed, it might lead a team to pick him.
Yeah, I think both of these guys are really close. I think I still tend to I think back at when we recorded these videos and some of our podcasts right after the combine, and it was hard to not get excited about Ruggs draft stock then, but I still feel like I would probably go Jeudy. But I agree. I think it's close. I think the team that gets the first choice and the team that gets to take the second guy, I think they're going to be in a good spot no matter what.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
And just to sort of give you all some numbers while we're sort of going through this, it looks like Judy's projected to go anywhere from 9 to 15 from just the consensus would kind of say he's probably going to go, 11 to the Jets or maybe 12 to the Raiders is kind of what the consensus is. And with Ruggs, there's the consensus kind of says he'll probably go to San Francisco at 13, and I think a lot of people would be excited to see Henry Ruggs, get to play in that offense out there in California.
Oh, definitely. You look at, I think if you would have given Kyle Shanahan that Henry Ruggs in the Super Bowl, that we might be talking about the defending champion, 49ers. He's definitely a guy that can be a difference maker. Obviously, he was hurt by the Shanahan and the 49ers. They were obviously hurt by a speed guy like Tyreek Hill. So they're going to know firsthand right there, like what kind of difference that guy can make. And I think maybe that might spur them to kind of say, hey, look, we saw what this can do up close. Let's get some of this for ourselves.
And, now we're – so those four guys go, and I think you mentioned some of the records in play. Have you mentioned the SEC record already?
Yeah, obviously the 4 picks would be an SEC record. I'm almost ready to guarantee that Alabama will tie that. It's a matter of breaking it, and that's what we talked about before is, will Xavier McKinney be that 5th guy? Will Trayvon Diggs be that 5th guy? Hey, if they both get picked, Alabama ties Miami for 2004 for the most first-rounders set by a program. And if you really want to put on your crimson glasses, maybe both of those guys get picked and Terrell Lewis sneaks in for the 7th. That is seeing the world in a very crimson way.
Those are some powerful glasses to see.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Both of those guys and Terrell Lewis.
I don't personally see 6. I could believe 5. And like I said, I think it actually might be Diggs. I wouldn't be necessarily shocked if it was 6. If you told me to project, I don't think I would. But if both Diggs and McKinney, I think that they're both first-round-ish guys. So if they joined the 4 offensive players, I would not be totally shocked. But if I was from an optimistic Alabama perspective, I think I'd go with 5.
Yeah, and I think I think everybody watching wants to see where all these guys go. But for me, that's the thing that's really going to be exciting. Especially if one of those guys goes, around 27 or 20, which is where these guys are projected. If one of those guys goes and there's 10 picks left, it's going to be pretty close, I think, whether Alabama can actually tie this record with Miami. And that would be, just from a success standpoint, I think that would be huge, especially when you consider that, not everybody came out this draft. Like, Devontae Smith went back, Najee Harris went back. And maybe they're not in the first-round conversation, but maybe one of those guys is at least on a team's board. So just think about what it could have been.
Yeah, you bring up Devontae Smith. I think he's a first-round talent. I don't know if he would have been a first-round pick because, like we talked about, all the depth in this draft. But then again, I don't know what he would have ran in the combine. I think maybe there is a chance that Alabama would have had 3 receivers taken in the first round. That sounds just absolutely crazy, but I guess it's definitely a possibility of something that could have happened at least.
Yeah, and I think to me that's the biggest what if. I think if he'd come out, I think Devontae Smith might have gone in the first round. And again, it's hard to know because the combine matters a lot to these teams, and with no pro days, that's really the only chance to really get these the sort of data points that we normally would get after the season ends. But that would have been
another
crazy.
record to monitor, and this is one that I think Alabama just equals is 4 offensive players taken in the first round. It's something that's only been happened. I went back and looked. It's only been happened since once in 1946 when Notre Dame had 4 offensive players. And one of those I was looking is actually George Connor, who played both offensive and defensive tackle. So even that wasn't 4 just straight offensive players. But we're really going back, 60, 70 years to find the last time that 4 offensive players from the same school are taken in the first round. It really shows you the talent that Alabama has.
And on offense, normally I think in most years we would have been talking about, some linebackers, some defensive linemen going in the first round, and that's not what we're talking about. It's all offense, just about.
Definitely a great offensive class.
we've sort of talked about the records, and just to before we get out of here, I'll sort of let everybody know where McKinney and Diggs are expected to go. Again, this is the Mondays, so this is a couple days out before the draft, and some mocks might update in between now and then. But Diggs is being projected at really around 20, whereas that's where the consensus is, which that would have him going to the Jaguars. And then McKinney, the consensus kind of has him at 18 to the Dolphins. Strangely enough, or they kind of have McKinney fall into the second round. So
be interesting if he went to the Dolphins, because a team like acquired a first-round pick for trading away Alabama safety, only to then pick another Alabama safety.
Yeah, I would. I mean, the Dolphins need a safety, but that is tough. It's still tough for me to rationalize trading away a guy like Minka. But Minka, seemed like he benefited from that trade. So
definitely, yeah.
Maybe as long as he came out on the better end, we should just be happy about it. But anyway, I don't want to take up any more time. I just want to get to the draft now. I'm excited. This for me has been the only thing I've been thinking about watching. Obviously there's a lot of excitement around the Michael Jordan doc and as well deserved. But for me, it's all about the draft, and that's all it's been about for the last 2 weeks. Get me to the draft and let me watch it.
Yeah, me too.
So again, we want to thank y'all for tuning in. Definitely continue to like and subscribe to the channel so you can get those notifications when our videos pop up. I think there's a little bell symbol you can click, and you'll actually get notified on your phone or even on your desktop, so when the videos are up. You don't have to wonder, did they put one up to yet today, or is it going to go up in a couple hours? Just do that. That'll save you some time. You'll get updated with all of our videos. And also definitely comment on this video. Do you think do you think Alabama's going to get just the 4 guys, 5 guys, 6 guys? Let us know if you think Alabama's going to get 5 guys. Are you thinking it's going to be McKinney or Diggs? And who would you pick if who do you want to go to your team? And that's another thing. Most of y'all have professional teams. Who do you want your team to draft? Do you hope they get one of these Alabama guys? But anyway, thanks for joining us today, and definitely continue to check back tomorrow, and we'll probably have some more stuff about the draft next time we talk to y'all.